Jane is climbing up, I think, what we call the nubble face.
There are good handholds on there. They're small, but you notice the feet are sticking out in the air all the time. I only had toe hold, but they're all good ones. That's a good climb for a beginner to practice on, because it gives them confidence.
Oh, give me rope, lots of rope from a lofty cliff above. Don't hold me down. Give me time for a climb out at Carter Rock I love. Don't hold me down. Let me head for a ledge in the morning breeze, belayed by a pal from the cedar trees. Hit me on the head with a rock, but please don't hold me down. Just turn me loose. Let me wander over yonder where the footholds are the worst. With no excuse, let me wangle for an angle to make my ascent the first. Just let me hang on a knob till I get so bold. I reach out a finger for a fingernail hold. 2 inches and a push-up and you're in, I'm told. Don't hold me down.
This is the old tree that's long since dead.
We built a wooden platform, I would say about 20 feet up on the tree.
This is Oscar. You're looking at a cement dummy.
Possibly another 10 feet above the platform, we rigged up a piton through which we could belay.
What is happening here, this is the practice stance. That log across there simulates the edge of a cliff.
Everyone who learned to climb had to learn how to belay a leader, and belaying a leader meant arresting a fall, and the only way to do that safely was to do that with a dummy. And before we had a belay platform, we used to man-haul a dummy up one of the cliffs and drop the dummy off the cliff.
This is Peg Keister.
What we tried to emphasize in the dynamic belay was that you brought the belaying hand, in her case it was her right hand, from one side of your body across your body, so that you essentially increase the friction around the body for absorbing the energy of a fall. Now, there's a little mathematics involved, and the mathematics says that as the angle of the rope around a snubbing device increases, the friction that you develop goes up exponentially, so that the more you snub, the more you increase the amount of friction, and so the idea was to get an awful lot of snubbing in there. This is Frank Sauber taking a flying lesson.
The sight of people attempting to belay Oscar impressed a whole generation of climbers.
This is showing the static belay, what it'll do for you.
Now, our Oscar in these sequences was made from the trunk of a tree.
Was that you?
No, Don. That's Felix Peckham. And here's Chris.
Goodbye, Chris. Now he was doing that entirely static, wasn't he, and not doing it according to your directions.
This whole sequence shows that even such an experienced climber and belayer as Chris, if he is not properly secured while belaying, he can turn into a flying scordos.
This is Earl Reed.
Now let's see, did he do that right? He allowed it to slip, and besides which he's tied in.
Yes, in this sequence, Earl demonstrated the correct way of belaying by allowing the rope to slide.
Earl was a good boy. He had a lot of enthusiasm. He was a friendly individual. There he goes, off to the ward.
And the friction that developed around the body was so great that we brought out some leather patches that we strapped around the body so the person wouldn't get burnt as he learned how to belay. Now, in the Oscar tree,
This is Tony Solar climbing.
we drove in some lag bolts so that we could get up to the belay platform. And at the belay platform, we drove in a piton to simulate a piton in a crack. And the idea here was to simulate a leader falling and a second arresting the climb, arresting the fall from a perch. And we used first Oscar, and then at a later time we thought that our climbers, not our climbers, but our belayers had developed sufficient proficiency that we could actually do this with an individual. Here John Brem jumps with slack, simulating a fall, a leader fall, and he is brought to a rest or to a stop by Tony Sola. Here John is about 8 or 10 feet above the belayer, and he drops those 10 feet free, and he is brought up,
A little abruptly.
in this case a little abruptly, by his belayer.
We're a little bit scared, of course. We're dropping that man, dropping that man deliberately.